UC Supporting Women in STEM Society, UC Engineering Society, and the SUDO Club. We are so excited to have you all here to hear from these amazing speakers, and all of whom represent one of each of the majors offered within the technology faculty at the University of Canberra. My name is Eloise Robertson. I'm the president and founder of the UC Supporting Women in STEM and the faculty rep for the science and technology. I'm excited to introduce you to our panelists tonight, but can I please remind people to use the hand sanitizer available when grabbing the food, and also if you could check in on the Check in Canberra app just when you have a second, that would be great. Thank you. I will now welcome Charles, President of the Engineering Society, to perform the acknowledgement of country.
Hello. We would like to start today by acknowledging the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people as traditional owners of the land on which the University of Canberra Bruce campus is located. I would like to pay my respects to elders both past and present, and to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are joining us here today. Thank you.
Tonight we are joined by 4 amazing speakers, but first I'd like to introduce you to our dazzling moderator, Divya Pakiani, who is our 3rd-year student studying a Bachelor of Software Engineering. Divya is a dedicated member of all 3 clubs represented here today and is currently serving as Treasurer to the UC Engineering Society. Now to our speakers. Antonio Mazzulli is a partner within IBM, leading the public sector and hybrid cloud innovation. In this role, she is responsible for driving growth initiatives across multiple federal government departments and ensuring success delivery across multiple platforms. Now to Amy, who is a highly experienced cyber and management consulting director, having worked across diverse industries, specializing in leading business transformation teams around the world. David is a PhD candidate studying in the field of robotics and a co-founder of the research and development company Equilibrium, where they are attempting to build medical devices centered around neuroscience principles. Harry Treveldi is a data scientist at Fifth Domain. He was previously a research officer and laboratory coordinator at the Australian National University Cybercrime Observatory. He has completed a Masters of Computing at the Australian National University, specialising in information and human-centred cloud computing, the 2nd best university in Canberra. I will now turn over to Divya to begin our evening.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Eloise. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you can join us here today in person, and for everyone online, hello. I'll just start by getting everyone to introduce yourselves, please. So thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in the tech world? Amy, I'll start with you.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everybody in the room and online. As mentioned, my name is Amy, and I am a cyber security director and consultant, and I currently lead a team of diverse security experts spanning a whole range of different cybersecurity offers, including cyber threat intelligence, vulnerability assessments, penetration testing, and software engineering, just to name but a few.
Hi, I'm David. I'm a PhD candidate here at the University of Canberra. So I basically spent the last few years writing papers and building robots. Specifically, I build robot hands to manipulate textiles. We can go more into that a bit later, but the idea is we want to use it for textile recycling. On top of that, I also was a bit involved in Canberra startup scene for a while, and hopefully towards the end of my PhD.
Awesome, thanks.
Hi everyone, I go by Tony, so a fewer syllables than Antonia. I work at IBM and I'm a partner there. I primarily look after hybrid cloud services for the federal government, focused on Australia and New Zealand. And really what that means is working with our customers to be able to put forward large-scale business transformation or modernization initiatives that do include a lot of other technologies, but are based upon a hybrid multi-cloud environment.
Hi, everyone. So I'm a data scientist at Fifth Domain. Fifth Domain is a developer of cloud native platforms that are used for cyber training and learning. We have primarily 3 types of platforms: learning labs, which is individual training. Then there are ranges, which are for collective training. And then there are competitions, which are used for competitions like CTF, Capture the Flag challenges. So I am lucky to be in the few people who are both at the intersection of data science as well as cybersecurity, which are 2 of the most used buzzword in computer science at the moment. So yeah, as the company has grown, my role has evolved as well, from data analytics to data visualization and then data science. So yeah, loving all the data related roles that I'm being through. So yeah.
Great, thank you. So could you guys maybe tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are today in terms of your career and educational development? So maybe formal education as well as informal education. Let's go the other way. Harry?
Cool. So starting from the start, I did my bachelor's from India, Delhi, then did a few years of system development with a small Korean company called Samsung. Then yeah, came to Australia for a master's degree, fell in love with artificial intelligence, data science, worked my way to a casual job with ANU Cybercrime Observatory as a research officer. That was truly a learning experience and prepared me for subsequent roles in data science. That really helped me with future of my role. Then came to Fifth Domain through a person who was common to both Cybercrime Observatory and Fifth Domain. So yeah, here from the starting phases, there was more of data analytics and visualization, but now we have grown, so has the data with the organization. So now we are using more of machine learning, data science, and predictions, those sort of things. Yeah.
Thanks, that's pretty cool. I didn't start out in IT, so that's another topic that we might talk about a bit later tonight, but my undergrad is in biology, and I got my bachelor's degree in biology and in French languages. I started and worked in the pharmaceutical industry for about 14 years before transitioning into IT. And education has been really important because I think it's created a foundation of critical thinking and looking at ideas and concepts and being able to connect the dots between them. After working in the pharmaceutical industry for a while, I did also get my MBA, and as a fun project, a little bit of a master's degree in philosophy, because learning, again, new concepts and all different types of things really is relevant to the way that we communicate. And again, we bring our diverse backgrounds and selves to work. And after working in the pharma industry, I moved into Lockheed Martin, doing a bit more strategy and IT, but also working on large platforms. I had the ability to work on composite materials, nanotechnology, kind of leveraging different types of technology to make F-35 a little bit more lightweight. And again, I didn't really have a background in composites or nanomaterials either, but it's really being able to, again, translate some of that understanding of the way we critically look at things and then connect the dots. And then about 6.5 years ago, I was offered a position here in Australia. I'm originally from the US. And that's when I'd say I really got into more of a deeper understanding of IT from a cloud computing, from an infrastructure perspective. And it's been a lot of learning on the job in that way. So I've been able to continue my education, not just through particular like university degrees, but rather online training, different types of training that companies offer. And I will say too, the 2 master's degrees that I have, my my employers paid for them at the time, so I studied on top of going to work full time, and that was a nice benefit, to working in a large company that was able to, support my education that way. And again, really thinking about leveraging the skills that we obtain through classwork and through study. It's been 6.5 years, again, dedicated on IT, and I feel very thankful now to be here in Australia and to be working in the IT field with a number of agencies like Defence and Home Affairs, Service Australia, a number of FedGov agencies, initially with Lockheed Martin and then now with IBM. Thanks.
That's really interesting. You've got such a diverse career background. I think I might ask you a little bit more about that in a minute, but if you could tell us a little bit about your educational background as well.
I think I'm still probably a bit at the early stages of it, but I won't go back to like 1996, little nippers preschool in Bronte. But so I got out of year 12 here in Canberra at Narrabundah College, then just went straight into a Bachelor of Software Engineering. I did that for 3 years and then went and worked in IT for a year. And at the time, the university hired a professor here, Damith Harath, who ended up becoming a PhD supervisor. But I did an honours project with him and another teacher here where I made little robots play soccer. So I developed computer vision algorithms to help them detect the ball and other players on the field and how we approach that problem. So after I did that, I started asking my supervisor, I started asking my supervisor questions about PhD and stuff. And then he recommended that I take some time to do some that I try and get a paper published to get an academic background. So I spent a few months doing that. And then I began my PhD in 2018. So throughout that time, it's been learning kind of a bit of, it's kind of about learning a bit of everything. So things like computer vision, kinematics, dynamics, programming, maths, electronics. It's kind of just been a whole basket of stuff. And just slowly just learn things like that over time. I think that's pretty much my educational background. Sorry, it's a bit short.
Okay, so I don't have a master's or a PhD, but I did start off with a Bachelor of Business, Business Information Systems. So I do have an IT degree, but I didn't actually start using it straight away. But I did pick my degree based on the fact that during my third year of my studies, it included a mandatory 12-month full-time industry work placement. So that actually stood me in really good stead for when I graduated. And I was fortunate enough, so that placement was with GM Holden Limited, which sadly, if anyone is following what's happening with the automotive industry, is almost no longer here in Australia. But I was fortunate enough to work with that amazing company, and I did manage to continue my employment for my final year of university. So I did graduate my bachelor's degree with 2 years of full-time work experience as a brand new, shiny graduate out of university. So from there, I joined the big bad world of consulting, and I haven't really ever looked back because I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I grew up. And if I'm really honest, I still don't. And I thought that consulting would provide me with great variety to try and hone in on a specific area that I was really interested in. I knew generally that I liked doing business and I liked dabbling in IT, but I didn't want to be a software engineer. I didn't really like numbers. Sorry, Harry, for data science. And cloud wasn't a thing, okay? So I dabbled in consulting and then got into management consulting because I really like people and I had a bit of a personality. So technology, when I first started my career, wasn't the specific pathway that I took. Fast forward, and I'm now in cybersecurity. And maybe we can talk about how I pivoted from pure management consulting into cyber, but I won't jump and preempt some of your further questions today.
Okay, I think that's a great transition. Quite a few of you have had a variety of roles and different things that you've been doing. Can you tell us about these big career changes, your experience of them? Did you have any challenges? And also maybe whether you feel like your past experience has informed what you're doing currently and what you learned from them. I think maybe we'll go to you.
Okay.
So you can continue.
Yes, so yes and yes. So I mentioned that I did make what from the outside seems like a big shift from pure management consulting into cybersecurity. For me at the time, I didn't see that it actually was. For me, cybersecurity is just another overlay of risk management, okay, from a business perspective, if we actually think about what businesses are all about. So I didn't think that it was a big shift for me personally. If you look at the cybersecurity industry in very general terms, I came up against quite a lot of resistance because I was not seen to be credible necessarily, and my what were deemed to be pure consulting skills were not necessarily respected straight away. So I had quite a challenge to build credibility. And so linking in with a previous comment about informal training, did really focus on industry training, looking at certifications and other things outside of the university academic system to try and add further strings into my consulting bow so that I could be seen as a credible influence. All of the other industry-specific learnings, I am a defence SME, I work with predominantly defence and national security clients. All of that from my previous consulting background is the same, no matter what you're actually looking at, what project or engagement you're working on. All of that previous work history, my previous 10 years of work experience, was entirely relevant, and all of those softer skills that I'd learned through my consulting career absolutely apply. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Okay. I think that was really insightful. Does anyone want to go?
Oh, I'm happy to go next. Sure. So I did talk a little bit about the changes in my career, but I want to say there's a few people that when you're young, you have an idea about exactly what you want to be when you grow up, and you pursue that path. Like I had the fortune to meet a NASA space commander, and she said by the time, when she was 9, she knew she wanted to go into outer space, and she dedicated her entire life to pursuing that dream and did eventuate in that role. But I think a lot of us have a little bit more of an opportunistic or experiential path, when you're going through your career choices and learning. So I always did really like science, and biology was something that I was initially interested in, and I was able to take a number of math courses, and as you would know, right, all of the chemistry and biology and immunology, all the courses that kind of align with that type of degree, and it does enable you to think in a certain way, like I was mentioning. But when you think about how that translates into your career, I think being flexible and willing to try new things and to explore different areas based upon opportunities that may come your way enables you to be able to, perhaps take advantage of a different path that maybe wasn't in your initial thought process. And so kind of being open to the possibility of a different career path or a different opportunity, I think is especially important, given that science and technology changes all the time. As you mentioned, cloud computing really wasn't a thing, when I was in uni and, when we were perhaps first starting out in that sense. And so, if you don't have that understanding of continuous learning and being able to look at technology trends and apply the skills that you have to them, there's like software engineering, how many folks are studying COBOL right now, right? Like probably not that many, but it was a really big language at one point in time. So if we don't change and learn and grow, then I think, you can easily kind of get stuck in a particular area. I think I'm going to stop talking and pass it on to someone else.
Would you like to have a chat?
Sorry, what was the question?
I know, I think I lost track.
So the question is about like your career or specialty changes that you've had, and any challenges that you've had there and your experience of that.
Oh yeah, so just like Amy said, it looked like a big change, but it wasn't really, because I was applying the same core basic skills to what I was doing. So even though I was a system developer first, I was just looking at how to show the data in some way that would make good intuitive sense to the reader or the viewer. Then there was data analytics, which is somewhat the same thing, looking at data and looking at patterns in data. And then visualization is also same basic concept, visualizing the data in some way that would make intuitive sense. So yeah, even though my tools and techniques may have changed, the same basic concept applied to the underlying area, I guess.
Thank you. Did you want to say anything?
So I don't know how many students out there think you're doing the similar thing to I did, where it's just straight into a job like after undergrad, like pick a field. I found that like going through, like I just thought I was decent at computers, like going through year 11 and 12, and then just went straight to software engineering. So it was kind of a big shift after I worked in IT for a while and thought, well, actually, would rather work with robots. But I kind of remember actually when I finished my undergrad and one of my supervisors said, oh, you know, you never know, one day we might see you back here for a PhD. And I remember throwing holy water at him and running away. But it's as they kind of said, it's kind of a combination of experiential path versus like I just kind of wanted to work with hardware and software. So I think just keeping an open mind, and I was very surprised to find where I ended up 2 years and 3 years after I graduated in a PhD program. And that shift was interesting, but a lot of fun. Yeah, that's all I want to say there.
Thank you. So it sounds like all of you have had some pretty significant shifts throughout your career. So with that in mind, how do you feel about students specializing or majoring at university versus maybe staying board while you're in an undergraduate degree and then maybe specializing later on?
So I would say at a bachelor's level, you should basically try everything that you like, whether it be a minor or elective in a course, just go for it. If you think that it would go well with your major, just try it and see if you like it. As you go towards a master's or PhD, that specific thing that you want to do might become more clearer, and you would want to go into your area of interest, and that's perfectly fine. So yeah, in a bachelor's level, you should try most or all the things that you can, I guess.
Do you want me to go next, or you want somebody else?
Yeah, so at UC at least, a lot of the IT degrees don't require you to choose a major. You can just do like your required units, and if you want to, you could just do any other subjects as electives. Do you think that there is a benefit then to majoring, like for us?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I have a question around that. So if you don't have to select, what is the degree you graduate with?
Oh, so like I'm doing software engineering,
Right.
and if I wanted to, I could do a software engineering degree with a major in one of these four things,
Gotcha.
but I'm just doing software engineering, for example.
I gotcha, I understand. Look, I think I have a similar belief to what you have in regards to, you pick a topic that you think is the area that you want to focus on. It's hard to know when you're first starting out in uni, but you have an idea about what you like, and then you can sample and identify different subjects. But I do think it's beneficial to have a degree in a particular field. If it's in software engineering and then you move into cyber or you move into another type of technology, you'll have that foundational basis and you'll be able to leverage those skills and have a bit of an expert, to be an expert in that space. You'll have the degree and you'll have the credentials around that. At a master's degree level, right? Like you want to like it. You want to make sure that you like it. I started a master's degree in molecular biology, and I took about 3 graduate level classes, and it was cool. But I just realized that was too narrow for me to focus on. I was working in the lab in R&D. Like when I say I was working in pharma, like I was doing experiments and research. So it would have been very relevant to my job, but it also would have very much narrowed that path. In an area that I personally wasn't comfortable doing. But being able to, like, I think if you can specialize in an undergraduate degree and then perhaps become more of a generalist. I know it sounds a little bit different, but if you become a generalist a little bit later on because you have your bachelor's in cyber or cybersecurity, and then maybe work in other areas, you kind of add different skills, and instead of going deeper, you might just go more horizontal or in a separate area. So I do think it's worthwhile, but maybe I'm a bit traditional in regards to the way that I think about uni degrees.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I kind of take the viewpoint of when choosing a major or a minor or doing whatever you want. Like, one thing I've noticed personally for me is hindsight's just, well, sorry for everyone, I assume, but hindsight's just 20/20, sorry. But the point being is, I think I found that the better path for me just works finding just things that I like doing and keep doing them. I think if I have to work on a problem that I'm not enjoying, things like procrastination and the rate at which I'm able to work is lowered. So while in your undergrad, I do agree a bit on the UC side. I don't think it's so important to pick a major. It's just finding work that you find interesting and like enjoy doing. And I think things just become clear as you follow the things that you take an active interest in. That's what I found.
I think for me, based on my experience, a specialism is useful just to provide some direction to begin with. It's not the be all and end all though, and you don't have to get it right the first time. I guess that would be my guidance. And where you start your career doesn't mean you will finish it there, and you can change. It's not set in stone. And I read an article saying that, for this generation, I'd like to think I'm not that old, but I'm feeling it at the moment. You will change careers 7 or 8 times throughout your working life. Okay, so I think we can get very wrapped up in major, minor, somewhere median in between. And I think specialising is good. Find something you're passionate about, and then get out into the real world and get some experience behind you as well. That would probably be my guidance based on my personal experience. I'm very supportive of academia, but doing the real world too, and get some real world experience under your belt as well, because the two together is where things are really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's, you guys have said some really interesting things in terms of changing careers, kind of having a direction, but also keeping your options open. And I think what you guys said about not being sure of what you want to be when you grow up is something that a lot of people can relate to. So for us at university, or in terms of your opinions on university education, do you think that there are particular personal or professional development areas that university misses? So Harry, you're in tech education specifically. Do you have anything to say about that?
Sure. So for me, it was basically realism. Having transitioning from a university life to work life, it's basically you can't really everything that is meant to be wouldn't be, I guess. So there are going to be some external factors that would interfere with your work or not make you check all the boxes at a particular task, but that's perfectly fine. That was one thing that frustrated me a bit when I started working, that I'm a little OCD that way. But yeah, you get used to it. You learn to live with it. Realism was the basic thing. Then there's accountability, I guess. You have to own what you do and think everything through before acting on it. That's one thing to also keep in mind in a workplace setting. I guess, yeah, that's basically it.
Okay. I do think that there are probably some differences that you do have to factor in, just like you mentioned, between graduation and when you're starting a new job, starting into the workforce. People always talk about emotional intelligence. I know it's a buzzword, but the reality that is that the relationships, the communication style, the ability to deal with difficult people you don't like, people you don't get along with, and you have to be mutually successful together to achieve is really challenging. You deal with a lot of ambiguity in the workforce, and that's a little bit different than uni, I think. And I have a lot of compassion. Like I like school, I like uni. I like I like being in a classroom and sharing ideas and learning from other people. And those things happen in the workforce, but it's not the same. When you are taking a class, you get your syllabus. I'm assuming if it's still that way, up front. You know when your tests are going to be. You know when your projects are due. You get feedback immediately after you take that test, after you hand in an assignment. Maybe it's a week or two, but you still get that in the near term. And every semester you're onto a new topic or in a new subject, and you get to almost start over, and there's it's a lot more fast paced. But I think in the workforce, feedback is hard to come by sometimes. And so you could be working on a project and you don't really know, are you doing well? Are you not doing well? I think that we have a new culture of feedback where we try to provide it, but it's not the same type of feedback, especially if you're an achiever and you like getting high marks and, high grades. You're taught in uni that that's where your recognition and your kind of, the way that you see yourself kind of comes from, right? But there isn't that type of feedback all the time in a particular position, and that's hard. It's a hard transition. And I think the other thing too is projects are more long term, and so you might not do something new on a regular basis. You might be doing something that you might seem to be repetitive. And again, it's a hard transition. We all go through it, but it's not something that is a natural progression from being in uni and then being in a job. And so it's about educating managers to understand how to best connect. If you're whether you're working with a new graduate or with an internship program or a graduate program, being able to make relationships and connections so that it's easier to leverage the team that's on the ground and have them help you make that transition, because those things are different. There's a lot of ambiguity every day, I would say, in the workforce, and I don't think there's as much ambiguity in uni.
Cool.
I think these guys have covered the adjustment you guys have to make personally to the workforce. So I might just briefly on the tech adjustment I had to make and what I found startling. So as you mentioned, you do your courses, and they're like, all right, this is this library, this is how you code in this is what language you'll be using, and you need to make an app that does this. That's not at all how it works once you get in there. So you'll have meetings with other organizations who want to use your software and, patch a connection through so that their data is getting transmitted through your management system, which then they want to get back in the form of automated reports. But a lot of that's left to ambiguity. So you might, talk to any software. You guys have surely seen all the memes about users, developers, and the connection between them, right? Like there's a reason they exist. It's very real. So like one of the especially come from like, tech, BSc, BIT, Benzi, whatever. My biggest recommendation would be is learn how to get the grades, get the marks, because better grades can also come back to academia if you want to and all that. But kind of make sure you develop a way of thinking that solves problems and optimizes the way in which you complete your assignments. Like, so if you're in a coding course, some of you will be able to, spend a week on a program, get the grade, get it finished. But, like one kind of challenge you could set itself is like, well, can I optimize this that I could code it in 2 days if I spend a day planning rather than just kind of sitting down and starting out to type? And I say that as a massive hypocrite because that's what I did all the time and still slightly do. But yeah, basically 3% of the tech knowledge you'll get from uni, but it'll be a massive learning curve tech-wise when you get to your job. So just develop a problem-solving kind of way of thinking is what I recommend.
I agree with what everyone else has said. I think we also need to remember what universities do and what they're good at, and that they can't do everything, and we can't expect them to do everything. Okay, so when you graduate, you come out with good core foundational skills, but that's not the end. Okay, and you don't come out of university at an undergraduate level as an expert. So your learning doesn't stop, particularly in technology or engineering, STEM, and particularly at the moment with the rate of change, and we look at cybersecurity, cloud, all of the topics that we're talking about here, the sheer rate of change with technology and the evolving nature of what we're dealing with, we have to stay on top of what's happening in the industry, tools, technology, all of it, all the time. So the learning doesn't stop as soon as you walk out that door.
Can I say one other thing?
Of course.
I just thought of something else too. In school, like in uni, when you're doing a particular project, there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. And when you get the right answer, you feel good, and it is the right answer. And there's a bit of, purism, this purist belief in that. But in a business relationship, sometimes the right answer is right technically. 1 + 1 = 2, but it doesn't lead to success at all. And so that's why, like when I was talking a little bit about that emotional intelligence bit, I oftentimes have to work with some folks who are new to industry and say, yep, it might be the best way maybe to code this app this way, but we have a customer who has a different perspective, or we're working with another part of the business who has an angle that they need to put in and leverage. And so having the ability to know, okay, there may be the quote unquote right way to do something technically, but we're going to need to compromise and find a path that's inclusive of a number of different perspectives. And that's a challenge. It's always a challenge. I have to remind myself, I have to remind, the people I work with as well.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
And you will know, you're talking, so your reference to feedback.
Yeah.
The client will give you instant feedback if they're not happy as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great point. Do you guys have any advice for students then about what we should be doing apart from uni to kind of seek out and develop these skills? I know, Amy, you've been very, you told us a couple of times today that we should be seeking professional experience if possible, and I think that's a great point and an important thing to do. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
Sorry. So I think another one is finding some really good mentors, because that's something that I've certainly had, and I went to great lengths to find my people, I guess, through my final years of university and my early work years when I first joined the workforce, because it's tough, okay, and you need to find like your network and your people and where you fit, okay. So that would probably be one, is find some really good mentors and some ears and some shoulders to lean on, because it's tough. So that's probably a start. I mentioned the industry certifications as well. So that's probably another avenue, particularly in cybersecurity. Federal government clients really like to see the degrees are important, don't get me wrong, but they really like to see industry certifications as well on resumes. That's probably another avenue. And I mean, networking opportunities like this as well. There's a lot of industry bodies. Canberra has a lot. So, you know, you can get discounted student memberships. I am not part of them. I'm not getting commission. This is not a sales pitch. But also attending industry conferences too. So you can actually pick up a lot of information, find out about industry trends. I was talking about tools, figuring out what's actually around and available, and tapping into the Australian market and finding out what's happening in the startup community. Canberra's got some really amazing capability and some local capability that we're trying really hard to build. There's actually a really fantastic startup kind of innovation community that is getting some traction and some attention. And that's probably just off the top of my head a start point.
Can you just remind me what was the other projects to improve, like things to do on the side, right?
Yeah. So how would you
other side hustles,
the out of university skills?
So speaking from a tech perspective, the people I know who are like very, very good with technology and building things, and you know, the very good roboticists and cybersecurity people, I actually find that a lot of the stuff they do in their private times, their personal projects, like generally reflects their performance at work. So for example, one of my housemates works as a software developer and a very good one for a cybersecurity firm. And I think within 2 months, when we first moved in, or when we first got the house together, he'd rigged up the couch to be voice activated. So he just did a lot of very weird and fun stuff in his personal time. It opened, so it's voice commanded. So you yell, couch, turn on, and then it extends, so you're nice and relaxed. Yeah, we use it a lot. It's great. But the point that I'm trying to make with this is, you know, I have another person who went to my undergrad with, and they would build this very, very strange, like Delta platform with pneumatic tubes, like just very weird and fun projects that do in their own time. And I found that those people actually ended up doing super well, especially in tech in early stages of their careers. Mm-hmm. So like pet personal tech projects, especially because it develops tech skills among other things. I've just noticed that trend is all I was going to say.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything you guys wanted to add?
Yeah, I just have two quick things. And I think the first thing is, like, my secret in regards to the best way to transition between uni and undergrad and career is when you're working, if you just do what you say you're going to do, that is like the biggest win ever. And I know that might sound trite or sound silly, but it's really not. You don't know how many people come to work every day and they say, yep, I'll write that report, I'll call that person, I'll take all this on, and 2 weeks goes by. Hey, did you do that report? No. And I know it's silly, but it's about integrity and it's about accountability. So the way that, you know, you kind of operate in your daily lives right now, translating that personal integrity and commitment into just doing what you say you're going to do. And I think that's like a social contract, right? That we have in our personal lives as well as our professional lives. And because I think a holistic person is really important, like we all have interests outside of our professional interests too, right? So I love chatting with people at work about the things that we like to do, like mountain bike riding or, you know, hiking or, you know, photography, whatever your other interests are. So every day when you come to work, just like when you come to uni, you know, you've made connections. So I think having a fairly diverse area of interest as well helps you connect with a number of people that you'll work with, because you might not always just work with an engineer. You'll probably also work with somebody who's a project manager or someone who's in finance, and we all think very differently. So finding other ways to connect and kind of build relationships, I think, is important.
Yeah.
I think you've covered everything I wanted to say, but yeah, I was going to say that having your own personal portfolio of projects, that's a great plus point for everyone. That tells any potential recruiter your skills as well as what your interests are, which is, yeah, that's a great plus point for anyone to have. Other than that, networking in events like this, it's a great, great place to network and find new connections, look up mentors too. So yeah, these are the things that I did that really helped me. Then there was, if you can find any internships, casual jobs, part-time jobs that are remotely connected to what you want to do in the future, that's really helpful too. That really helped me in my job hunt later too. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you all gave really great and interesting advice. I think we're almost getting towards the tail end of our structured questions. But before we go, I've got a question for the women on the panel. We are less than a week away from International Women's Day. So in that spirit, is there anything that you can tell us about your experience as women in IT? And is there anything in particular that you think workplaces and universities should be doing to encourage diversity in the workplace?
Sure. There's so much to talk about there, and I don't want to take up all the time, you know. It can be challenging. Like I look around the room now and I do see, you know, a certain ratio of women to men. It's like that in the workplace as well. So I think you know, when it comes to what it's like, I think you'll probably be comfortable in the scenario because it's just one that that sometimes does occur. There is a really big push to recruit more women in science, technology, engineering, and math fields, especially within IBM and in Lockheed and a lot of some of the other companies that I've worked here in Canberra. So I think that trend is there. We need to though make sure that there are the right support systems in place. So for me, I'm actually the diversity and inclusion rep for my business unit across Australia and New Zealand. And when you have executive level support, things change in regards to daily practices. If you're not measuring diversity and inclusion in an organization or in a university, it doesn't happen because things that get measured actually get done, right? You know, you're not going to do a report if somebody's not going to grade it. You know, we're not going to do a project if I'm not going to get, get paid on it, in work. And so making sure that when we talk about ways to support women in their technology careers, that there's actual support at the executive level behind it. And I do see that more and more often. But the thing too that I'll just say is we have to say that it's okay to feel uncomfortable as women in technology and still move forward. We have to support each other. That's so important. I know you've probably heard the quote, you know, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. I think it was Madeleine Albright who said that. There's, you know, different ways to look at that. But to me, the way that I interpret that is we just need to support each other and look after each other and also have strong male allies. Like, you know, when we're, you know, we may very well be in a meeting or in a classroom and a woman may say something that gets overlooked or dismissed. And there could be another gentleman who says something very similar and it gets recognized. Having male allies in an instance like that to be able to say, hey, I think Jen just said that, you know, and let's build on that concept or, you know, whatever that is, that's really helpful. So these are just things that you kind of experience on a regular basis. And, you know, more and more there's a path to fitting in and a path for acceptance for the diversity and inclusion. And I do feel really positive about it, although by no means are we, you know, where we really need to be just yet.
This is always really an awkward question, and I get squirrely talking about it as well. So look, careers in IT as a woman, it's like it's a job and it's like day-to-day life, okay? So there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days and there's going to be ups and downs. And there are people who will support you and then there are people who will want to tear you down. And I've experienced both ups and downs, bad, good, and in between and otherwise, okay? So I've kind of run the full gamut and by no means do I think, is that over? And when I first started my career, I was quite naive and I thought that the job was done and there was equality in the workplace and it was quite rainbows and lollipops, and that wasn't the case. You know, I have experienced lots of different things in the workplace, good, bad, very ugly, and it is reflective of life. And the job is by no means over, but we are forging ahead and we're taking strides, and lots of organisations are trying to do really good things. I will say within my own organisation at the moment, I'm the only female executive and my whole team are male with the exception of myself. I am trying really hard to change that, but I'm only one person as well. So it's an ongoing challenge. Yeah.
I don't think it's up to individual women to like.
No, it's absolutely not, and I can't take that all on my shoulders, even though they are quite broad. But yeah, it is I have some very strong male allies around me as well. My key ally is actually up the back. So yeah, it is an ongoing challenge, and it's not just women in the workplace either. Yeah, I should say that too. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think you guys said really valuable things about supporting each other, about being like intentional about increasing diversity in the workplace and measuring it, and like supporting other women and also people who are not women supporting women. Okay, so before we go and hand it over to our audience, is there anything that any of you guys would like to leave us with? Any comments, any advice? Anything else you want to share? Okay, great. Then I guess if there's anyone in the audience who wants to ask anything of our lovely panelists, please stick your hand up. I might hand this mic over to someone and we will go around the room. If anyone has questions.
I'm actually rethinking that, and I think potentially it's keeping the mic with you guys and then we'll just yell. Is that?
Okay, yeah, we can yell.
Just less running, I think.
Okay, that's fair.
We have a couple of questions on the remote audience.
Oh.
Okay, wonderful. So if you're online and you want to ask questions as well, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we will see if we can answer them too.
Super digital, amazing.
Received a couple of.
Oh, we've got some.
Sam, do you want to read them out?
Sure. I'm just going to have to hand it back.
Santosh would like to know if anyone has any recommendations for international students that are graduating.
I think that's also going into like in terms of security clearances, like if you have any experience with international students in Canberra specifically. I'm just assuming that.
Absolutely.
Anyone?
Can I help you rephrase that question and add a bit more to it, please?
Yes, feel free.
So one of the stuff that I've come across as an international student is that, especially in the IT sector, is the security clearance stuff, or they're always asking for you to be an Australian citizen or a New Zealand citizen, regardless of the skill level that you have or the portfolio that you made throughout your life. The question is it possible for us as international students to reach through this wall, through networking or like exceptional skills?
Okay, so the question is...
Can I be really honest with you? Can I be really honest with you? Unfortunately not, no. Given where we're living here and the primary focus on our clients, who are federal government, the mandatory requirement for us as consultants, and primarily we're all consultants to federal government, is that you are able to hold an Australian government security clearance. The mandatory prerequisite for that is Australian citizenship. There is no way to get around that mandatory requirement. I'm sorry. Even if you were hypothetically the number one global world leading expert in your field, you would still struggle to get around that requirement.
Can I say something too? When
Yeah,
you're finished?
and that's really just a sad fact.
Yeah.
So yeah, try and focus on financial services, energy utilities, any other sector outside of federal government. And the smaller agencies do not have the same requirements, but all of the large federal government agencies do have that security clearance requirement. And I'm sorry that there's no way to get around it. Yeah.
Just to follow up on that, is that a Canberra thing? Like, so Sydney or Melbourne is it?
It's not a Canberra thing. It is an Australian government requirement. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So any of the major government agencies require that. Yeah.
Right.
And it's due to the nature of the information that we have access to and what we're dealing with. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, that's just the nature of the beast.
It is.
And sorry, Santosh, on the line as well. Yeah.
But I guess to look at a couple different things,
Yeah.
I think that there could be sponsorship for for citizenship, right? I actually just became a citizen not that long ago, and so that was positive. I will say though, and this is very specific to me, I can't say how it would relate to other international students or people, because I had a defense clearance in the United States when I first came over, and I was working with defense in Australia. I was able to get a reciprocal clearance in Australia. So there are small nuances around that, but it's I think it's few and far between. You know what I mean? It's few and far between.
They are quite exceptional cases where that does happen.
It is. But really, it's nearly impossible. I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, that's the nature of it.
Yeah.
Please hang in there and stay here and go through PR
exactly.
and become a citizen, because we do need you. We do need you, and we need the tech skills. Yeah.
Did anyone else want to say anything about that? It doesn't have to.
Yeah.
I think, like, from the perspective of international students, because we have a lot of international students here.
You keep talking, but I'll run it up to Vic.
Okay. A lot of students who graduate are like, oh goodness, what do I do now? What should I be looking at doing? Because so much of the workforce in Canberra is in the public sector and does require all of these federal requirements.
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to say anything, or should I? Okay.
I think Vic is saying something on this topic.
Okay.
I'm not going to contradict at all what Carol said, because it's absolutely true. But there are some niches in Canberra. So there are some, if you target certain organisations, so there is a little bit of a tech startup culture in Canberra. It's very small, but it does exist. If you look for private enterprise, they will actually take people who have, like at the moment, Fixed Domain is recruiting, and for some of our positions, we actually can take people who are have the working visa. I've just got that wrong now.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you. Yeah. So if you've got a postgraduate working visa, we can actually offer positions. It's not the same as being able to have like a solid ongoing role and that level of security that will come with citizenship. But there are areas that you can target. So I would definitely encourage you to actually get out and meet people, go to those industry events, be very targeted with who you approach and trying to break into some of those smaller private sector companies. There's some fantastic scale-ups and cybersecurity scale-ups in Canberra, and they will often give you paid work opportunities, so you can still be building your resume, building those skills, so that hopefully when that time does come, you've got something really solid to show in terms of having applied your skill set within Canberra and having really strong and credible references as well, because Canberra is also a very closed, closed work kind of culture. So if you can get some familiar contacts from Canberra that can back your skills and the work that you've done, that will also go a long way to, I guess, helping you bridge and transition into something that's more permanent. So casual opportunities as well, if you're a programmer, often if you say, look, I'm happy to do 1 day a week or just a bit of time, again, it's not perfect, but it at least gets you on the ladder and gives you something to kind of bootstrap in your career to keep going.
No, thank you for your contribution. And we'll be having a tech startup panel night similar to this one in semester 2. Not to plug that, but just it seemed relevant plug.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom for international students. Any more questions from the audience? Yeah.
Was there a moment that you clearly remember as a before and after in your careers?
Oh, interesting. So the question was there any particular moment that you cite as delineating a before and an after, a pivotal moment in your career? Any of you want to answer?
For me, it was probably, I got, just because the sheer unlikeliness of it happening, my first academic publication in 2018, that was relatively career defining because it ended up winning an award at the conference it was presented at. So that was definitely the start. I considered it, but that's for me, and I got very lucky.
Cool. Anyone else? No? All right.
Another one from online. Austin would like to know what you think the best chance for someone to get their dream job and to enter the industry after completing their degree. What do you think gives someone the best chance to get their dream job and enter the industry after their degree?
I'll answer it. Okay. I'll take a stab and then maybe we can kind of digress from there. But I think I might just have to say what people might consider to be their dream job might change pretty readily, right? And what you think might be a dream job right now may not actually result in a dream job. So I think the way that I would interpret that is maybe there's a particular type of technology you'd like to work with that would comprise a dream job. Maybe there's a certain location, geographical location you'd like to live in and work. Maybe there's a certain amount of money that you'd like to make or a certain environment that you might like to live in. If you make a list of the top 10 things that you'd like to find out of your job and maybe have a few non-negotiables and the rest negotiable, when you're interviewing and when you're looking around, you might find positions that tick the majority of them or one or two. But, I think it is a good thing to have an understanding around, well, what's good enough? Because the dream job, I think it may very well change. So for example, let's just say you start, one of the things is you definitely want to be in Canberra. And, the other things aren't as important, or they're important to work in software development field in Canberra and make X amount of money. You might get that, and you might be working on a super exciting project you're getting paid what you want to do. And now your customer is moving to Melbourne. And so your company offers you a relocation to Melbourne. Do you take it? You're really happy because you're doing the things that you want to do, but it might change. Like nothing actually stays the same. So when you really do love something that you're doing, you kind of have to have a little bit of that flexibility that, around impermanence that way, I would say. You look like maybe you're acknowledging too.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. So yeah, there's some gives and takes. Whatever works for you best, you should take that.
Yeah.
Did you want to add something?
Yeah. I would probably just question the dream job definition. And I'd probably go with the dream job for now.
Yeah.
Referencing my earlier point about not having to get it right the first time or the second or the third or the fourth. I would pick something that is going to give you a really good opportunity and grab it with both hands. And don't worry about the money because it will flow later, okay? And it will come. That would probably be my guidance. Yeah. don't get concerned about the number straight out.
Cool. Do you want to add anything?
I think everything to add. That's covered it.
Okay, cool. Next question. Anyone in the room?
Well, I think I've talked about sort of networking and trying to develop contacts and all that, but within Canberra, I've noticed that there's not many sort of networking events or anything. It's always outsourced to Sydney or Melbourne.
Right.
And right now in these sort of times, it's a bit hard to sort of go to those events. Are there any tips to sort of try and find groups or different activities that we can network with professionals like yourself to try and sort of gain those contacts?
Okay, so the question is about networking. So Brendan said that in Canberra, there are fewer relatively networking events compared to, say, Sydney or Melbourne, and it's hard for us to get to at the moment because of the ways of the world. Do you have any advice on how to pursue those opportunities?
Sorry, okay, Neil, it's fine. What fields were you trying to get into, if you don't mind me asking?
So you said
What field were you thinking about trying to get?
science. Okay. So the different sort of networking groups I was looking at, there's about 3 or 4 different groups in Canberra. And a lot of the groups that I did see, a lot of the events they ended up having were all conventions and stuff that were in Sydney or Melbourne. So there were no real meetups as they developed in Canberra. It was all then laid back to a bigger meetup with all sort of everyone in Australia meeting up in Sydney or Melbourne. So it just seemed to me a bit hard to find someone in Canberra to actually have a conversation with and sort of understand the fields that I'm going to have it there.
Look, I can, okay, if people don't mind me just coming in. So there is one networking group that I know of. It's called Day of the Month Club. So that's an ENGSOC networking. I know it's predominantly cyber security, but there's like definitely a variety. I'm not sure if other people, Vic has been there, I've been there, you know, there's a few people here that could vouch for it. So that's just the first Thursday of the month. They meet at the Realm for drinks, and you know, predominantly they talk about like Marvel TV shows and stuff, but sometimes there's some cool like relevant. And then there's also B-Sides Canberra. I know like the women groups, like Women in ICT and AWSN, they're both really good ones. But yeah, I mean, if anyone's interested, feel free to talk to me about Day of the Month Club. I'm quite heavily involved, so feel free to ask me about that afterwards, but I will throw it back to the panel just in case they know of any other ones.
Do you want to go?
So look, as a student, the Australian Computer Society is a good one, because they're trying to do a whole lot more stuff in Canberra locally. I can't remember the woman's name, but I had a meeting with her at the end of last year. COVID obviously has had a big impact on the ability to do things face to face. We seem to be coming through the end of that, at least in terms of our Canberra bubble. So I think you will see things be reinvigorated again this year. There is a big cybersecurity conference happening on the 16th of March, CyberCon, sorry. Encourage everyone to go to that. That's hosted by AISA. So that one's going to be a big one because that's the first face-to-face conference that's been run in over 12 months, and that's actually happening in Canberra. I'm not getting commission for that either. Yeah, so maybe the Australian Computer Society, because it is more generalist in terms of computer professionals. It's not a cyber specific one. Yeah, I'll have a think about some other ones that are not women specific as well, because there's a lot of women groups too. But that would be a start point.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say too is it is about kind of having those types of asking those questions and networking that way. So I'm happy, you know, to connect. We have to connect with everyone really. And if there is a, you know, we all have networks. We all have networks. You have networks. So you might know someone, and I'm just, you know, generally asking anybody in the audience who is in data analytics in a corporation, and there might be a connection that you can make for each other that way. There's certainly people that I could connect you with in data analytics, and I think we're always looking for mentors and reverse mentors and engagements that way. So even just, you know, coming up to a panelist and saying, hey, you know, could we have a chat? You know, could we meet up? Is there anybody that you might know in a particular field that might be interested in having a chat? And it can even begin to start, you know, a more of an informal group around, hey, let's just get together once a month and have a chat around, you know, Marvel TV is good too, you know, or anything else that's going on. So I think that could be another, you know, indirect path.
The other one that I will very quickly plug, I know Innovation Canberra runs their first Wednesday Connect first Wednesday of each month, but specifically from the few I went to, there were definitely people from Intercluster one time and a few other data science places. So I think perhaps targeting things that aren't specifically data science and then trying to find the data science folks in there might also be, you might see some results there.
Yeah. Harry, was there anything you wanted to add?
I was just going to mention the CBRN's first Wednesday Connect, but
Yeah.
you already mentioned that.
And make friends with Harry, because he's a data scientist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've got one right here.
Other than that, I felt that talking to your lecturers or your tutors also really helps. They have their own connections and networks. Yeah, you can tap into that anytime. Yeah, that's about it.
Thanks very much. I think that's really helpful. I don't know about you guys, but I find the whole concept of networking to be a little bit intimidating. So I think those are great entry points. Okay, how many more questions do we have time for? All right, great, a couple more. Anyone else online? Okay, anyone else in the room have any questions? Yeah.
So commonly, this comes up in many of these discussions, a lot of the emphasis is on what can you add to your resume to make it more appealing. If we flip that, is there anything you can think of that would detract from your resume if you include it?
Oh, interesting question. So for everyone online, that was, is there anything that you shouldn't have on your resume that would detract from it?
Spelling mistakes and grammar errors.
But any experience that
Yeah, any experiences?
that has maybe limited your career or
You know, it's a hard, when you think about like a detractor, right? Like you said, an error is a big detractor. An exaggeration is a big detractor. Sometimes people put things that are more social oriented. You know, if you have a photography website, maybe some people put a link to your hobbies, your other interests. Maybe that would be not as exciting for some people. Maybe it's not as of interest, you know, if they're looking for a specific field, but I don't see even that as being a negative. I personally think it's a positive, but everybody is going to look at it a little bit differently. So I think if it accurately represents you and you feel good about that has to be good enough. And it is on the recruiter's end, it's on the manager's end to be able to be accepting of the diverse and unique, you know, information that you put in your CV and your resume and your application, and really kind of cherish that to say, hey, this reflects, you know, a full human being, and we need to accept that and accept all the diversity that comes along with it.
Maybe if you were a One Nation supporter, we put that on there, potentially that would be a deeply attractive, personally.
It's not quite an answer, but actually this does kind of, I am just a bit curious to kind of hear see this in the audience. So how many, if you're working in an IT job in Canberra, or sorry, if you have a job in Canberra, can you just raise your hand? And can you keep your hand up if you submitted an official resume or if it was through networking?
You said two things.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I did. Sorry, put it back up. Keep them up if you submitted an official resume. Okay, most of you. Curious. Sorry, that was just very interesting to me.
Cool. Did anybody want to add anything to that? Okay, thank you. Okay.
I'll come back to it if I think so.
All right, sure.
I'm sure there is, but I think. I don't think so. Spelling is my,
Spelling is the big one.
spelling and grammar is my pet peeve. If anyone submits the resume to me, spelling and grammar, please check. Do not rely on Microsoft to do it for you.
Get someone else to read your knee. Okay, I think we have
There was a question. from
one more
Stuart.
question.
Yeah, on the same note, I think I once wrote out like a null email address, like Hotmail instead of like Gmail pulls that. Is that like true anyway?
Does the domain of your email address matter? I have a Hotmail address and I just think that it means that I'm bald. Is that a bad thing?
So some in cybersecurity, I have heard that some in cybersecurity would question people using like older domains, but I don't subscribe to that theory.
No.
I think it's a misnomer. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't listen to everything you read on Google or news.com.au.
This was unrelated to that question, but even in work, right, when we have speakers come and talk to us, there's always that, hey, who wants to ask a question? So I might give advice to say, be comfortable asking questions.
Yeah,
you know, it's hard to say, but it's hard to kind of get comfortable with because you put yourself out there and you think, oh, maybe that was a stupid question, or maybe somebody's already answered that in part. But again, no stupid questions, right? Like we are all just people. And, you know, so I would try to maybe find a little bit of strength in the discomfort when it comes to asking questions too. And it goes on forever.
Absolutely.
I think that's great advice. Okay, last call to questions. I think we can maybe do one more. Eloise, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
No, I think all mine were asked. I had a big one, but it's too big for the last one, I think. So yeah, no, but I mean, I really encourage everyone to. Sam's gonna finish up. Do you want me to finish up? Or you want to finish up? Yeah. So Sam's going to do the closing, but you know, I really encourage everyone to stay. Talk to the speakers. You know, ask questions. Kind of like. I think David's point before was really, you know, like a lot of jobs do come from networking and stuff, and we've got 4, you know, really awesome companies and things represented here, so I definitely recommend. Also, Beck in the audience, I'm sure she would love to say hi to everyone, so feel free to talk to her as well. Hey, Sam.
Yeah, so as Ellie said, please feel free to stay and chat with each other. This is a networking event after all, just go to have fun that. Really like to thank all our panelists for coming along. I believe we had a couple of Eloise grabbing. I'd also like to thank Eloise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you.
And thank you to the faculty for facilitating this.
And everyone for coming.
Yeah. Yes, the class that put this on.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I'll speak briefly about those. I see you trying to scroll past them.
No,
UC Engineering Society, there's Fred Charles there is president of UC Engineering Society, so if you're all doing, even if you're not doing an engineering degree, if you're vaguely interested in engineering, please go to the UC Engineering Society. They are, they're Tuesday at 3:30. SUDO is my club. We are the developer organization, so if you're even very interested in coding, developing anything related, please come to SUDO. We are Thursday, 4:30, so tomorrow. And I'll leave this.
Oh, you didn't have something to say about? No, I'm just joking. No, it's funny. Yeah, so SUDO, this is our first year if you're unaware, but you know, we're, I guess what we're trying to bring is a lot more like networking events, so things like this. So definitely stay tuned for that. We actually have an upcoming event, literally the same thing, but just with the science majors. So if that interests you at all, definitely stay close to the socials. We also have International Women's Day movie next week, Hidden Figures. It's such a good movie. Yes, exactly. Everyone come for the movie. All the profits from the movie, it's $5 tickets, are going to a women organisation. So yes, okay. So thank you everyone for coming.